Hi all. So here we are today taking a look at Call of Duty Advanced Warfare single player campaign. Now, as with all Call of Duty games, we are kind of following a very simple template here. There's always a big bad, there's always a twist that you could see coming, and there's always the kind of buddy cop kind of thing going on with one of the other characters in the game. The guy who you're going to see pretty much in every single map, giving you instructions and following along with you. This is probably one of the better Call of Duty single player campaigns we've had in quite a long time. Probably the last one I remember being this engaging was Call of Duty Black Ops, and before that really was Modern Warfare. But that's not to say that this is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, a lot of the time the game can be pretty dull. It's not because the gameplay isn't engaging, but it's because we've kind of seen and done these things before, albeit with a slightly different twist like double jumping, grappling and so on. Now, this is very much a story all about the future of warfare and what might happen if a single military contractor ends up with too much power. These are themes drawn quite directly from the US-led invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, and obviously draws quite heavily from the notion of world governments becoming paralysed with inaction. Everything here is very Call of Duty, and it comes down to one simple fact: they're not trying to break the mould. In fact, if anything, this is very much a single player campaign which has been poured into well-worn moulds of Call of Duty past. Graphically, this is the best Call of Duty we've ever had, certainly a substantial improvement over the Call of Duty Ghosts, which was lame to say the very least. What I really liked about the graphical presentation here is, at times it is almost photoreal. In fact, at times I would almost describe it as photoreal and then some. There's a real sense of accomplishment with the way they have done the character modelling here, within the in-game cutscenes and within the full motion cutscenes that have been pre-recorded for us, but again using the in-game engine. They really are top notch, and they lend a certain gravitas to this game which has been missing, I think, from previous Call of Duty games, which were just a little bit more gung-ho than usual. Now, the actual single player campaign, it really isn't going to win any awards for originality, because it's just copying what's come before. Don't go into this game expecting to have an experience like Wolfenstein, which kind of blew everyone away, myself included, for a way you can deliver a narrative story that is gripping and engaging, yet still have boundless fun and be over the top. Call of Duty doesn't quite reach those kind of heights. In fact, it almost feels like it's pulling itself a little bit short from trying to do something unique, because it doesn't want to fall away too far from that Call of Duty template, as it were. Now, one of the things that I found slightly irritating about this game, which I didn't really get from previous Call of Duty games, is those vehicle levels. They're always there, that little opportunity to drive a buggy, fly a plane, etc. But here, it feels a little ham-fisted in how it's been done. Those levels tend to be something of a frustration, normally having you fail in some really unpredictable way. A lot of the time when those levels came up, I found myself just wanting to get through them as quickly as possible so we could get back to the shooting, the thing COD is really known for and good at. And really, that's something to mention as well. The shooting mechanic here, the gunplay, is top notch. Not quite as meaty in my opinion as Wolfenstein, but certainly better than Battlefield 4. I wanted something a little bit more from the guns though. The variety just doesn't really feel all that engaging to me. All of the guns pretty much come off as, that's an assault rifle, that's an SMG, that's a heavy weapon. Trying to pull a bead between what makes those particular classes of guns different, not really there in my opinion. Certainly one SMG is exactly the same as another SMG, only this one fires 3-round bursts. There just doesn't really feel like there is enough of a difference here, and I couldn't really find my P90, as it were, experience within this game. There didn't seem to be an SMG that fit that mould. Rapid fire, drop them quickly. As the game progresses, the enemy AI doesn't necessarily become more difficult to take on. What it does is it tends to ramp up the number of hit points it has. And so you'll find that early on in the game you're mowing down enemies left, right and centre, but towards the mid part of the game, and certainly the later stages, it's going to take a fair amount of damage to put an enemy down. That does tend to mean a little bit of ammo conservation and so on, and having to think and pick and take your shots. Whilst I don't want to spoil any of the kind of twists in this game, if you've seen any of the trailers for COD, you know what all the twists are going to be. But there was one level that left me feeling like a man with one arm tied behind my back, quite literally in fact. Because at some point you will be told that you only have the gun in your hand and you can't reload because, well, something has happened to your other arm, let's just say. This would be all well and good, but if this is how you kind of ramp up the difficulty of the game, meaning that effectively you have to conserve your ammo, pick up new guns as you can from the floor that have already been, loaded and fully cocked, then, I don't know, it doesn't quite play in my way, to a brothers soldiers against the world and we are super gung-ho. It literally just made me feel like a man with one arm tied behind my back, desperately looking for a gun lying on the floor. I spent more time looking for guns than I did trying to shoot people. Now that's not to say Call of Duty is not a fantastic game. If I was going to give this a score out of 10, I would say it hits around an 8. It's not the best game ever made, and it's certainly not as good as some other shooters that have been released this year. As I keep mentioning, Wolfenstein, it's going to be a game of the year, is that one. What they've done here is very competent. It shows a level of skill at Sledgehammer that I don't think a lot of us were expecting. We kind of expected a phoned-in game, a lot like Call of Duty Ghosts. What they've actually managed to deliver is much more compelling. In fact, it's incredibly well-rounded, and I think these guys are going to become fan favourites for working on the COD franchise. The new stuff they've added works. The tweaks, albeit small tweaks that they've made, work. The graphic engine more than works. It is beautifully well rendered. However, there are some slowdowns and stalling a little bit within the in-game cutscenes. It's almost as though they've ramped up the level of detail within those scenes relative to the actual gameplay, as it were. And so you can see the frame rate dip a little bit. If you want to see how that actually looks, do take a look at the Digital Foundry video comparing the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Every time they hit one of those in-game cutscenes, you can see the frame rate really start to struggle. I should mention I've primarily been playing this on PC, but I've also checked the game out on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The interesting thing here, taken together with the Digital Foundry footage, is if you want to play Call of Duty on console, you'd be better off playing it on Xbox One. Yes, I just said that. You'd be better off playing it on Xbox One. And there's a very simple reason for that. The frame rate is considerably more consistent on Xbox One than it is on PlayStation 4. On PlayStation 4, it is definitely not locked solid at 60 frames a second, even during real gunplay, as it were, within the levels. You'll find that frame rate is hitting 58 frames a second more often than it's hitting 60, and at times it can crash out as low as 50. Contrast that with the Xbox One, where at worst it's hitting 58 frames a second in those heavy scenes, where the PS4 would be struggling around 54. So, in summary, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare is a fantastic title. The single player is holding together really well, although there are some problems there, because it's not trying to push the formula forward in any way, shape or form. In many respects, this is Call of Duty done right. I think that's probably the best way we can put this. They've released a very competent single player game that doesn't try and break the mold, but adds in just enough new stuff to really keep you engaged, to make you care about playing Call of Duty single player again. It can feel like a little bit of a trudge at times through those vehicle levels, but overall the gameplay is solid and the graphic engine really does deliver next-gen visuals. My final score for Advanced Warfare is going to be 8 out of 10. A well-rounded game that doesn't quite reach the pinnacle of other shooters, but delivers something competent and well worth the money, in fact. Thanks for watching. Do please subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch, and please like and comment on these videos as well. We love to chat.